This is the spawn of a normal Minecraft server. And this is the spawn of 2B2T, a decade-old anarchy server that gives you the freedom to do whatever you want. Today, I will tell you about my 270-hour journey through 2B, the places I traveled, the projects I discovered, and the people that I met. All to build this, a wheat farm that is over 1,000 chunks large. The sanctuary was originally created on this same server 12 years ago by a player called Jang. Today, it is unrecognizable, having been griefed multiple times, and I want to rebuild the entire thing. This was me a while back, and I clearly didn't understand the extent of this project. 4 months, hundreds of thousands of blocks, and countless hours of dedication. To start, I need to escape spawn, which is a surprisingly difficult challenge. Then, I need to gather food and early game items. Next, I have to collect millions of blocks for the build. And finally, I have to finish the build by placing everything. The reason why step 1 is so difficult is that the server is a barren wasteland. Spawn is full of spawn hunters, portal traps, withers, and no food for tens of thousands of blocks. Another problem is that griefing is a huge part of 2B2T. I couldn't just build at spawn. It would get destroyed in a matter of seconds. I can't even build anywhere near spawn, because there are players constantly searching around the map for other players' bases. I need to travel close to 1,000,000 blocks away so that it would be impossible for a player to ever come across the valley. To travel this far in a reasonable amount of time, I will use the large player-made nether highways, which are 8 times faster than traveling in the overworld. These highways are highly populated with PvPers, and I might need to travel for hours on end. After joining the server for the first time, finding a nether portal and getting onto another highway was pretty easy. It only took 4 attempts. From there, I walked for thousands of blocks, stopping ever so often at nether portals to try and scavenge food or resources left behind by previous players. Along the way, I met some random players. I made sure to keep my distance and be very safe. I exited the nether a couple of hours later at 160,000 blocks in the overworld, the farthest I've ever been from spawn on a Minecraft server. I was finally able to get a large amount of food and got myself geared up. I made diamond tools and iron armor. Just to be safe, I traveled a bit further into the nether before setting up a wheat and sheep farm to gear up for the extensive journey that was to come. Collecting hundreds of thousands of building materials manually is close to impossible. It would take hundreds of repetitive hours doing the same thing over and over again. Instead, I'm going to find all of the blocks. There are thousands of dupe stashes that are hidden throughout the server. A long time ago, players were able to duplicate hundreds of millions of items by using glitches. In order to hide their things, the players took their items and spread them out with hundreds of thousands of blocks between them. This is the best way to keep items safe. The vast amount of space to travel for a stash hunter to stumble across these locations is ridiculous. It is quite literally like finding a needle in a haystack. Stashes could require me to search through billions of blocks and travel millions more. This hack client is basically required for me to find a stash. What if I were to ask you to find 10 chests full of diamond blocks hidden in this scene? Well, you probably can't find them. What about now? Just a little bit easier. In the hack client, modules like ESP, new chunks, baritone, X-ray, and others are essential when stash hunting. I need to be stash hunting closer to spawn, between 80,000 and 150,000 blocks out. So I traveled closer in the nether and exited at 110,000 blocks. With a bed, a bit of food, and of course, a boat, it was time to find another player's stash. Exploring a server that is over 12 years old is rather entertaining. Almost everywhere I went, I could see traces of previous players. I came across random signs, chests, and nether portals that hadn't been touched for years. A couple of hours later, I found 2 broken elytras left behind by some other players. This could completely change the way I traveled. With the proper hack client module, an elytra could boost the player to 20 times faster than the walking speed, while also requiring no firework rockets. I mended the elytra with XP from diamonds and then pillared up. However, when I tried to use the elytra with the hack client, I started lagging a lot. For the next 8.5 hours, I was too scared to put on my elytra, although when I did, I was able to figure out how to use it properly. Now that I could travel 20 times faster, it was once again time to search for the millions of items that I still needed. The hours started to drag on, and although I had found a lot of cool bases, most of them had nothing valuable in them. A couple of hours later, I died to lag and lost all of my good gear. At this point, the true scale of the project hit me, but dying wasn't the worst news. I was doing research on dupe stashes when I came across this. The 256k project, an exploit that players had used to find every single stash within 256,000 blocks of spawn. With the software, I located the nearest stash to my spawn point and started walking. Every stash had already been found and taken by previous players. I'd spent over 20 hours looking for something that never existed. With this information, I was back to square one. In desperation, I traveled 2 million blocks out and spent 10 hours searching for a stash, but all I found were empty bases. Along the way, I found a book written by a player asking for me to contact them. For this project to ever end in completion, I was going to have to ask for help. Before I met with Vape, I wanted to quickly set up a spawn base where we could meet. I put everything in an ender chest and sent myself back to spawn. Then I went 700 blocks out from 0-0, where I mined a large area out of a lava cast. I set up a simple base with medieval walls, a fishing area, and storage over the span of a few hours. Then I called Vape. Hello?
Yo, what's up?
What do you think of the place?
Carne asada.
Anything else?
Can I also get ice water?
Are you ordering food?
Yeah, I'm getting lunch. Babe, do you want anything?
Anything else?
Give me a combo burrito or something. I don't really care.
Can I also get a
Wait.
combo burrito, please?
Combo burrito, what kind of meat do you like?
Can I get chicken in that?
Anything else?
No, thank you.
Here's some items, by the way.
Oh,
Sorry?
yeah. Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
Okay, thank
So,
you.
do you guys play on 2B together, or do you just know each other in person?
Me and Vape basically, we got a place set up with some other people in this Discord.
Yeah.
All right, Vape. I'm gonna go pick up the order. See ya.
Here's the kit, by the way.
Thanks.
These are all the items that I have in my loot chest, so I'm gonna head out now. I started at spawn or something.
Okay, thanks for the items again.
Yeah, I got you.
Yo, what? Bye. After having an interesting interaction with Vape, I got all the items that I needed. But these aren't the millions of building materials that I want. That's because, with these tools, I'm going to manually mine all of the blocks. From spawn, I traveled 500,000 blocks out to find a location where I would collect items and eventually recreate the Valley of Wheat. I dug out an area along a mountainside that overlooked the ocean where I would finish the project. I set up chests for storage and almost immediately got to work on collecting 750,000 stone blocks. I would soon become incredibly familiar with the sound of stone breaking, and it would repeat in my head over and over for more than 60 hours. I wasn't able to collect all of the blocks for the project. I only made it to 1 million out of 2.4 million items. After realizing my underestimation, I couldn't bring myself to continue, and the project sat untouched for weeks. I'd log into the server and quickly leave after being reminded of the many repetitive hours I'd spent digging. It wasn't until I found out about the many item shops that exist on 2B2T that I started to see the possibility of the build coming to an end. It's a market that sells and trades hundreds of millions of items every year. I organized deals with players to get every last item on my list delivered. The entire process unfolded with remarkable speed. I went from the possibility of months of manually collecting blocks to having the items in less than 3 days' time. I understand that buying items may detract from the achievement of the build, but when I was dealing with literal hundreds of hours of my time, I was happy to move on with the project. To build the Valley of Wheat block for block, I will be using a mod called Schematica. It shows a client-side hologram that helps you see where every block should be placed. I used the module scaffold to place blocks under my feet so I could walk while filling in the area. The first layer took me a while to finish. I filled my inventory with shulkers full of blocks and emptied them as the stone and dirt were placed. I then repeated the process over and over, slowly making progress on the first layer. It took many hours of walking back and forth, laying down one strip of stone at a time before the layer started to take shape. 10 hours of work later, I was finished. But this wasn't even the entire first layer. It was merely 25% of it. The schematica was so big that I had to split it into 4 quadrants to even load it. With 10 hours for just one of 40 layers in just one quadrant, I started to wonder how much time it would take to place every single block and the crazy amounts of hours I might spend working to finish the build. It took me 4 weeks to complete one quadrant of the build, 84 hours to complete only a fraction of the project. There were days on the weekend where I'd sit down and place blocks for 5 hours straight in the morning and another 4 hours in the afternoon. It was a huge time commitment, and I couldn't help but wonder why I was doing it. Why was I spending so much time on an insignificant build in a block game? Were the hundreds of hours spent grinding just a catalyst for a 20-minute YouTube video? I thought about the many hours I had previously spent mining a million stone blocks, and what it meant to me. Strangely, I didn't consider it a waste of time, even though it was a trivial and repetitive task. Instead, when I thought back to it, I remembered the many unique conversations I had had with my friends in a school dorm, who would occasionally stop by my room to watch my progress. While I spent many dull hours placing blocks, it was comforting to think that the process was important, and I might even look back on it with a special fondness. 6 months later, as I edit this video, I can certainly say that I was correct. This footage is somehow important and brings a smile to my face. Nevertheless, 84 hours of work eventually took its toll, and I was sick of how slow the progress was. I was putting in as much time as I could every day, and yet the completion of the build at the current rate was months in advance. I took a break for a couple of days and finally decided that it was time to ask for help. Before the final few minutes of the video, I wanted to show you this design that I got commissioned for the Valley of Wheat. I turned it into a hoodie, which you can buy from the link in the description. I think it looks really cool, so yeah, check it out. Over the weekend, I contacted a couple of members from the 2B community that I had become familiar with over my time on the server and invited them to work on the build with me.
Was that the last wheat we had to plant?
Yeah, I think we're done.
300 hours.
Holy shit, bro.
It's finally over. 4 months after I logged onto 2B2T, I'd finished a complete recreation of the Valley of Wheat. I personally spent 270 hours collecting and placing blocks, but the project's conclusion was made possible by countless hours dedicated by a couple of individuals. It was incredible to view the full spectacle of the build. Somehow, hidden in an otherwise wasteland of a server, we had created a landmark of accomplishment. The completion of the valley gave me an overwhelming sense of achievement. When I looked at the finished build, I saw a collection of memories that I had made while creating it. A few special moments that I had shared with friends. For the couple of days in which the valley was complete, I wondered what would become of it. What's the significance of a place that only you can recognize? 2 days later, the group decided to make our project public. I quickly realized that the valley would soon be destroyed. Griefing is a large part of 2B2T. The cycle of creation and destruction is prevalent in every interaction on the server. It was harsh to acknowledge the fact that the project I'd created and spent months of my life making would soon be gone. It hurt to watch the Valley of Wheat get destroyed. It felt like I had just wasted months of my life, like I had nothing to actually show for all my repetitive work. But in the days that would pass, I would start to understand the significance of my time on the server. I would start to realize that not everything had been ruined. Just as I had recognized what the importance of my time was after I had finished mining 1 million blocks, I once again realized that I still carry with me each small and at the time seemingly insignificant moment and interaction that I had with many different players. As I look back on it, the moments grow to hold so much more value. From the random signs I discovered on the server to the parkour courses I finished. I can still remember the first time I met with another player, or when I almost got blown up with all my items that Vape had just given me. The conclusion of my story starts with the beginning of a journey, but not mine. One that started 13 years ago. One that started with the player Jang and ended with the Valley of Wheat. The original construction that took over 2 years to complete. The group that had worked together to complete our Valley of Wheat, 500,000 blocks away from spawn, decided to meet up at the original build, located only 13,000 blocks from 0-0. Being at the destroyed site helped me understand that eventually every build on 2B2T will be destroyed. It is only a matter of time, but what can't ever be ruined or taken away is the time that you spend with other people and the moments that you create. At the historic site, we met one last time, and in turn, made one last memory.